or in the chat or whatever. But you can emoji wave if you have a question. I'm going to start by some of the questions that were emailed in so I can rifle through some of these, and they might answer, or you might be one of the people that emailed me, and then I'll get to some of the stuff that you guys have. So first off, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. This is really awesome. It's so fun to see so many of you. It's been really great to just see the response of how you are all doing on the course. I can go through and see the progress of each and every one of you. I can search your name and see which courses you've done or which lessons and how much of them you've completed. So if you say to me, "Oh yeah, I didn't get anything out of the rhythm guitar primer," I can tell you, well, it's because you only did half of the first video. I won't be that snarky, but if I wanted to, I could. It's fun to see how everybody's progressing, and just online, people posting videos of them doing the things from the workshops and that sort of thing, showing their progress. It's really fun to see. So I'm going to start with the Q&A questions that came in email. Like I said, I got to read them from this. Unique technique in holding the pick, and what kind of pick? Common question. This is a Dava medium pick. On the last Q&A, I also told you my link. It's wong.com/picks. Wong with 4 O's.com/picks. That will take you to an Amazon page where I literally buy my picks. That's how I remember where to get them. Just Dava mediums. As far as the way that I hold my pick, that's unique. So I come from, well, I don't come from any school. It's just what is natural to me. But a lot of people will lump my picking, the way I hold a pick, I hold like this. George Benson, Isaiah Sharkey, myself, Matheny is kind of like this, where it's this sort of thing. Now, the one unique thing about my picking is I'm very angled, so I'm picking the strings kind of like across. I'm not picking like this as much, and it's more like this a lot of times. That's a very extreme angle of it. But if any of you are familiar with Troy Grady and his Cracking the Code, he talks about upward escape or downward escape. One of the big things about my playing is that I'm upward escape. So that means my upstrokes are when the pick comes out of the string. So I kind of, when I push, when I'm picking, I'm really kind of pushing through the string. And same with when I go. That sort of thing, I'm coming down and then it's up this way, as opposed to a lot of people who have this sort of thing. And I kind of can't even do it that way. But one thing I'll notice is a lot of people that play this way sound really chunky. And that, like, my technique, I'm watching in my side camera here in the monitor, like, my technique looks really good here. Technique looks awesome, but it doesn't sound great. My technique looks weird, but it sounds great this way. So I'm always going to go with the sound. Now, that being said, there are two guitar players that I know of that have the kind of proper technique that sound incredible. Mark Lettieri and Rob Harris. Those are very similar players to me as far as this sort of style is concerned. We all have our own individual things, but when we play this sort of thing, sound-wise, we have somewhat of a similar thing, but Rob and Mark, to me, sound a little more similar, I think, because of Rob's maybe in between us as far as his sound. There's probably a lot of contributing factors to that, but they both play proper technique, sounding amazing. Two of the best sounding guitar players I've ever heard. But I can't get that sound to feel right for me, to sound right. So I play kind of this weird pick angle. I don't necessarily swear by it, but I hold the pick two fingers like this, and I'm double jointed in my thumb. So it's kind of like that. And why my fingers flop around, I don't know. It actually just feels more natural for me just to let them. I don't even really think about them. I just kind of let them do their thing. But that's kind of my unique pick thing. But again, part of my sound is that downward. I'm pushing through the string, and then it pulls back up. So it's kind of, in a lot of ways, like a slap and pop, like a bass player. If you think of it that way, similar. It's like the pick equivalent. It would be a little less, obviously less extreme, but it's kind of like that. So do I always alternate pick up and down, or does it depend? This is one that we talked about on the last Q&A also, and really to me, it just has to do with the sound. Like sometimes I do, like that little thing that I was doing earlier, I do all downstrokes there because it sounds to me a little more driving, rather than if I do it up, down, up. That sort of thing. The difference, so here's alternate. Here's all downstrokes. It's just a little more driving, a little more so that's when I do that. And really the only time I ever get away from straight up alternate picking is if there's something in the sound that's really that I'm trying to accomplish. But I'm mostly an alternate picking guy. Okay, another question that somebody asked was how I hit the strings with my hand. In the signature moves portion of the lessons, I talk about hitting the strings, and somebody's asking about companion pass. So. Kind of asking how I hit the strings because this person, their hand hurts when they hit. I'm really kind of hitting like this. What's the best angle? Like that. It's kind of like this right in here. And I'm not hitting that hard. Don't like bash the strings. All you have to do is get enough. And sometimes even it can be the pick hitting. So if I'm like, I'll kind of hit the side of my hand, but sometimes it's even just kind of the pick hitting against, and then I'm set up for a downstroke. So I can upstroke, hit the pick on the strings, well, actually like kind of the side of my finger and the pick. Now I imagine if I had the kind of proper like John Petrucci technique thing happening, I imagine that companion pass thing would be a little bit harder. Actually, it's not that much harder. You probably just have to choke back on the pick a little bit. So I think if your hands are hurting, just don't hit the strings as hard. That would be my only thing. Advice for left-handed player who plays right-handed guitars and also has hyper-extended fingers and hands. I don't know about that last part. And the only thing that I would suggest is if you're a left-handed player playing right-handed guitars, watch other players that do that. Eric Gales is one of the most insane guitar players I've ever heard and seen in my entire life. He's just channeling something every time he plays. But his technique is really interesting, and he gets different sounds because of it. Sonny T, the guy that plays bass in my band, he plays upside down and backwards. Him and Mono Neon are both bass players like that. But Sonny plays guitar that way as well. I think the thing is with that, you just kind of have to find what works for you, because so much traditional guitar technique stuff is not going to apply as far as like down, up stuff in the sound. So you're going to have to experiment yourself on the sound. But all the principles of learning the fretboard, principles of learning harmony and how to get precision and accuracy on the instrument, those are still all the exact same. The only rules that are different is like, it'd be like, to me, it's the same as like playing the mandolin. It's really just tuned differently. It's still all like the same mechanics. You just have to kind of like figure out the instrument in a different way. Okay, one other one. This is one that I get quite a bit. How do I balance my family, faith, fitness, free time, touring, recording, traveling, producing content, mixing, business admin, practicing, skill building, songwriting in your life? What are some examples of what your schedule looks like, and how do you do the things that you do? Great question. The balance, well, that one's just something ever flowing and changing, and something that I'm always kind of working on, the work-life balance. But as far as how I get done what I get done, most of it has to do with very good structure of to-do lists and a good calendar. So that's the simple part of it. And then the other part of it is having other people involved. So I'm going to start with like the to-do list. When it was just me getting things done, when it was just me on my team, I was not able to get done nearly as much as I'm able to get done now. But I still, same rules apply on the to-do list. I have a to-do list of, here's all the things that I need to get done. Like, here's my tasks, right? Here's the things that are immediate, that need to get done today. Here's the things that need to just, like, tasks that need to get done this week. Like, somebody asked me to record guitar on their album. Like, they said it needs to be done this week. It's on the make sure you get it done this week to-do list. And then there's like this needs to get done by next month. I need to turn my album in to, whatever, to be uploaded to all the services in time or whatever. I need to have this video all set, or I need to have the mix ready so the video can get done to the mix, blah, 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 whatever. So I think about things in order that way. And then here's things to do for my next album cycle, which might be in a few months or in a year or whatever. And then from there, it's like, my to-do list just kind of keep my tasks at hand. And I'm very, I remove myself of distractions when we're really working. I'll put my phone away. Sometimes it drives my friends or family or people that I work with nuts sometimes, where it's like, I don't know, I just didn't look at my phone all day because I was working on stuff. And I can sometimes get in that hyper focus, for better or worse. And then the other real part about how I'm able to get so many things done is I have a great team of people around me. Like, I am able to do so much of what I do because I have great managers that help me with the business side of things. I have Michael, who's on this, who now helps me with video. I used to do all my own video editing, all that stuff, or, and the majority of even just filming everything. But Michael has been working with me for the last few months or so now, and it's been awesome to like have somebody who's really amazing at what they do help out with that, so then I can focus more on this sort of thing. The other thing is horn arrangements. I'll put together ideas for things, and Michael Nelson is a brilliant horn arranger, so he'll be able to help out with that sort of thing, and he can just like get it done, send it to me, we go back and forth. So much of what I do has to do with my team around me and my to-do lists and kind of prioritizing that sort of thing, what the immediate needs are, and that sort of thing. And then as far as like the family side of things, one of the things that I really try to do is when I'm home, I really try to be home. If I'm on tour, I'm on tour. If I'm home, I'm at home. When I'm at the studio, I'm at the studio. So I try to do that. Not at all perfect with that. Another question was, how do I recommend a musician from another country approach the music scene if you've just moved there or are not from there? I get this question a lot. I've had a lot of people ask me, hey, I'm moving to the US, or hey, I'm moving to Nashville. Hey, I'm moving to New York, LA, wherever. And the same principle applies. It's just find a community of like-minded musicians. Find people that are into the same type of music as you are. Find a crew where stuff is happening, and just try to become friends at first. Don't just like, hey, I just moved into town. I need a gig. That doesn't normally like go well unless you're maybe an extreme outlier or something. But most of the way that I've gotten involved in any circles that I'm in, like I was really close friends with everybody in Wolfpack before I got absorbed into the band. And I was really good friends with a lot of the people in some of the other bands or session players that I now play with. I was friends with them for months or years before I really started doing a lot of work with them. So I think first and foremost, make the personal connection. And if your stuff is out there to find online, awesome. People will like find you. If you're moving to a new country and you don't have any, if you say, hey, I just moved to town, I'm a musician, I'm nice to hang out with. Okay, well, they can find that out just like from hanging out with you. But you could also say, and here's some of my stuff if you're unfamiliar with me, and they can check it out. It's like, whoa, this person's really amazing at what they do. Yes, I might consider hiring them. So if you have a really good kind of reel or whatever online, most people have it via YouTube or Instagram or something like that. But really just set yourself up to be able to, for anybody, if you are moving to a new town, that anybody can just look you up and see what you're all about right away, effortlessly. And for college pre-screens, auditions, tips or pieces of advice for prepping, improvising, or just in general, I think colleges and people that are accepting students into colleges are just trying to see where you're at. Most people get into music school nowadays because the schools need the money. So really the testing and all that is just about where they're going to place you. Now, of course, there's other schools that like you of course need to test into or won't get accepted into, but many of the big schools you can just get into. It's just, are you going to have a tough time? Where are they going to place you in your classes? So make sure no matter what, you really know your way around the fretboard. In the course, I have the note location drill stuff, the caged system. If you have a good idea of that, not just the shapes, but also how it really works in music and how it associates to songs, how the caged system, how you can learn all those chord voicings and the associated pentatonic and major scales and minor scales, that sort of thing. Learn that stuff inside and out. So when you learn songs, you can apply those principles to the new songs and you can learn things in different ways. So the more that you just really know your instrument and all that, like you're going to learn music theory in college, but if you have some base level knowledge, that's going to help you a lot. Good question about this. On the workshops portion of the course, of the guitar course, should I do one per day or should I first become really good at what's in lesson 1 and then move on to lesson 2? I would make sure that you're pretty comfortable with lesson 1 before you move on to lesson 2. Now, does that mean you should spend 3 weeks on workshop 1? No. I would say if the first time through you really struggled, do it again and then do it another time until you're kind of comfortable with it, and then move on to workshop number 2, because it just kind of it builds on from workshop 1. And workshop 3 builds on in a different way than workshop 1. But what I would suggest is get them each, get number 1 until you're pretty comfortable with it, then number 2, then number 3, and then just go back and rotate between them all because they're all going to be great. I still practice those exact routines to this day. I'll sometimes throw on my exact workshops and work them out, or I'll look at my outline and say, okay, this is what I did on workshop 1, and I'll sit and practice that for an hour. I'll do workshop 2. So these are things that I will still do to this day. That's why I wanted to give you these workshops in this course. Somebody's asking about the personal training plan, the personal practice plan thing, the little add-on. Can you add it on later? And if I work long enough on the road, will I be getting news? The personal practice plan, yes, it's in. You can get it again in the artistry and creativity lesson of the course, and that's just like if you are going through stuff and you want me to take a look at what you're doing and just give you a real solid practice plan for you specifically, something that's catered to you. In the same way where it's like, okay, I treat myself to a personal trainer instead of going to classes at the gym now. Like I've worked out most of my life. You wouldn't really be able to tell by looking at me. I'm not like huge. Those aren't really my goals, but I do have fitness goals, and my personal trainer is able to help really cater that exactly to me rather than like a group class. So similar thing. I'll just be able to look at some videos of you. You tell me your goals and I will put together an exact plan for you. That's what that looks like. Great. Okay. I'm going to rifle through some more of these email ones, and then I'll take questions from people that are in here. I assume some of you are the ones that asked this. How would you recommend starting lessons for a young child, somebody with small hands, or any beginner in general? That one, not as much related to this course, but I think in general in life and in these sort of things, if you want somebody to get into something, just get them hooked first. Don't worry about all the technique. Don't worry about all the, oh, you need to know this scales. You need to... No 9-year-old's going to have a lot of fun playing that. Get some kids having fun on the instrument first. Just playing something. Oh yeah, I got angst. You know, that's what got me hooked on the guitar. And then I learned the, you know, so for anybody in general, anything that you really want to do, even for your friends, like if you want your friends to get into playing some sport, just get them hooked. Don't worry about all the technique. Just have fun first. Like that to me is the main thing. Okay. Some people have asked me about how I hold certain chord voicings. So somebody screenshotted me playing this A-shaped bar chord. And the fact that I get the 5, but I only use these rather than doing this fingering. I do this shape because, again, I'm kind of double jointed in this. So my finger, oddly enough, is the exact width of the strings 2, 3, and 4. So it just kind of fits. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. The one thing that this hinders is that this joint takes a lot of pressure because it's like this. And I just don't think it's good to always put that much pressure on. So although I do that sometimes, I try not to do it all the time. I'll use that voicing. So I think in the end, don't do any sort of chord voicing that's going to hurt your fingers. And especially if it's something that's going to invert your joints a lot. That's something that I have learned a lot. And I have a physical therapist that I see just like as preventative, like do oil changes on my body once in a while, just like that sort of thing. Look me over while I'm playing and make sure that I'm not doing anything that's going to mess me up. And that's one thing that I learned a few years ago was like, anytime you're really inverting your joints like that, long term, it might mess something up. So just try to find other ways to do it because it's going to be less taxing on your fingers. Try to keep your fingers more in this sort of thing rather than this general principle. So that's that. Okay. Some people have asked how long the course is available. As long as the website Teachable has a server, hopefully longer than Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Fortunately, they are not on the same server as Facebook servers, so Teachable is still up and running. Good thing we didn't do this as a Facebook Live Q&A, didn't? Okay, some people have asked then about the business side of my music career and what it's like having a professional career in music. Do I outsource any aspects of my business, my online presence, my social media, marketing, tour planning, all that sort of stuff? When I first and that was the last of the email questions. When I first got started, I was doing everything myself. And I was booking my own gigs. I was running all of my own everything. To this day, I still run all of my own social media and I run my YouTube page and all that stuff. I think that, okay, I will give one caveat to that or one exception to that. But yeah, social media in general, that's just, it's the personal connection from me to the fans. So like that feels right to do. If I were to have millions of followers, would I maybe need somebody to help me with some of that? Sure. There are aspects of my business that I outsource. And when I say outsource, I mean there are people on my team that help me with, like I was saying earlier, my manager, Dan, who's on this call, he helps me with a lot of my day-to-day operations. Hey, here are the things that are coming in business-wise. Here's some schools that are interested in having you come do classes for them, or here are some artists that want you to collab on their album, or, you know, this artist asked about, having you come in and songwrite for them. So I'm like going to fly out and write with a handful of different artists over the next year. And my manager helps me sort those things out. So that way I can focus on the creative side of things, and then the business can be handled elsewhere, which I'm not afraid to talk the business and do that sort of thing, but it's just nice to have somebody else to do that. And then, like I said, Michael on this call, Michael Bowden, he helps me with my video stuff now, with video editing and that sort of thing. I still do some of my own just because I do some. And we do a lot of videos, as you probably can tell. We do a lot of projects. And I have a booking agent who helps me book all of my shows. I have a booking agent who books my US shows, and then I have another agent who books everything outside of the US. So I have an agent named Ethan. He's got a team of people that do all of my booking and coordinating for live events in the US. And then a guy named Rob and Clementine. They work on my stuff. They're based out of London, but they do everything outside of the US. And then I have somebody who helps me with my publishing admin. If you're unfamiliar with publishing, so basically the quick thing is, if there's a recording of a song, there are two sides of the rights to that song. There's the recording of the song itself, and then there's the songwriting, whoever wrote the song. Okay, so when the Beatles recorded Blackbird, they own the master. Well, sorry, let's just pretend the Beatles were an independent band like nowadays. The Beatles will have owned the recording and the publishing because they wrote the song. I recorded a version of Blackbird. I own the master, I own the recording, but the Beatles own the publishing, if that makes sense. Okay? Probably the Beatles label, the Beatles publishing company, I don't know what their deal was. Anyways, so I have a publisher who helps handle the rights to my songwriting stuff. And then I have somebody who helps handle there's a girl who does a woman who does my taxes and that sort of stuff. I don't know. I don't think everything's covered there, but most of it. I see some other questions in the side here, and I'm going to address them. Pickup height in consideration with the slap technique. I have my pickup height. Honestly, I don't think about my pickup height. It's just kind of like whatever the stock. Honestly, with this, it's just however this guitar came. This is the signature Stratocaster, the Cory Wong signature Stratocaster. Imagine that. However it came from the factory, that's how I use it. Or that's like the pickup height. I don't really know. But I have really low action. Again, it's straight from the factory. I told them how I wanted it set up. So if your setup's all weird, that's... I don't know why. But from the factory, they're all supposed to come with my setup, which is low action. Merch question: will my signature Seymour Duncan Clean Machine pickups be available separately at some time? Still working that out. That'd be kind of fun, but right now they're only available in this guitar. How do I guide other players on what to play in my music? That's a great question, and I think if you're playing a line and you want somebody else in your band to do it, you just need to give them the vision for the song. If you're the band leader, as far as, hey, here's what's happening in the song, and here's what I think is best. So this is what this part is. This is what this person is covering. This is what this person is covering. I think it's best. Like, these roles are all covered. This one is missing. What do you, like, if you kind of set it up, like all the rhythmic stuff, if you want somebody to just kind of like play some airy, like kind of ominous chords, like kind of with a cool tone. I don't have any pedals on right now, but that sort of thing, if your part is, you can suggest to them, hey, the drums are covering this, the bass is covering the low end, I'm covering all the rhythmic drive. The thing that seems to be missing is this sort of kind of like wide open, just sustainy thing. And they might come to this conclusion on their own. Or they might suggest something to you and you'll realize, oh, yeah, you're right. And maybe I'll change my part. So I think sometimes just that sort of communication, it's really about what does the song need, what's best being covered by which instruments and who's covering them currently and how can that be rearranged. That's, I think that sort of communication is always good. Am I still learning guitar stuff? Can I give you an example of something I'm practicing? Yeah. Speaking of Troy Grady, I've been getting with him on. Just like the shred technique, right hand. Because my right hand technique, I have great right hand rhythm stuff, but as far as shredding goes, like I don't have this super fast thing, and I'm just working on that. It's just, that's an ever-changing thing. And I'm always studying different types of harmony and different ways to kind of weave in and out of different chord changes. Lately, I've been kind of interested in that sort of altered dominant sound. So, or like, altered dominant sound, like a G7 sharp 5, but playing basically 7th mode of A flat melodic minor, right? Messing around with that. I mean, I did that in college, but it's like now I'm just doing it in different contexts, or I'm doing it in different sort of things. But a lot of what I'm doing and learning is in my writing. I'm trying to write different things. I'm trying to expand my sound more, just continually growing in my harmonic sense, ear training, different techniques, that sort of thing. I don't think that's ever going to stop. Best way to memorize arpeggios by thinking about the numbers, shapes, or a combo of the two. I think as far as arpeggios go, the best thing to do is just familiarize yourself with the caged system and the corresponding pentatonic and major scale shapes, and then build those as anchor points for your arpeggios. So if I'm thinking about a G major, really, that first one is just coming. The first octave is coming from this E shape scale, and then this next one is literally the exact C shape of the caged system, and then I just add the 5th up top. Right, or I could go up here. Right? It's just that A shape of the caged. Right? Or... Right? So it's all just built off the caged system for me, and it's anchor points. So you can think shapes, but also the way that I think is chord tones. You can think shapes, but I always think, oh, that's the 5th. Oh, that's the 3rd. Oh, that's the root. Because that's how it applies to the sound, the music. It's not just, oh, this is this geometric shape. Because a shape doesn't have a sound. The shape only matters to guitar players. If I played this chord shape on my piano, it would sound quite different, right? It's just a guitar thing. Like, of course, piano players have shapes that only apply to them, but those things aren't going to sound good on the guitar. So in the end, think about chord tones and notes and how they work in music. Are you and Wolf recording this year? I have a bunch of stuff that I've already recorded. It's coming out. That's the fun thing about me right now. You're just seeing you're seeing my creative mind in real time with like a 6-month lag, I guess. Because, the managers need to do what they need to do to get people to listen to the music and get publications interested in writing about it and all that sort of stuff. Plus, it's, I know I can sometimes put out an overwhelming amount of things. It's like, if you catch this one, great. Otherwise, catch the next album. I'm going to keep making them, So I feel really great. Actually, I recorded an insane in-studio album at Paisley Park. Was I supposed to say this or not, Dan? I'm not supposed to say this, am I? Keep this between us. Yeah. That's coming pretty soon. Keep this between us, Q&A. It's pretty freaking fun. And then I did another season of Cory and the Wong Notes, which a lot of people saw because I was posting stuff online and the other people in the band were posting Instagram stories and whatever. So that both those are kind of done, ready to go. How to gauge how high or how low to shoot when negotiating my pay for a gig or a session. Well, that's what Dan is for. I don't have to do it anymore. No, that's that's a great question. Normally, I'll say, like, I try to ask people, like, oh, you know, what did you have in mind, or like, what's your rate? For me, the majority of my career, for a long time, I was just like, I'll do whatever for however much. For a long time, that's how I was, and sometimes it worked really great for me, and other times it was like, oh, I learned 30 tunes, 2 rehearsals, and 1 gig, and I got $75. Huh. I kind of would have thought that was more. I would have gotten more, but okay, whatever. You know, so I've kind of had that attitude that it'll all work out. It'll sort itself out. Now, nowadays, there are other things involved with it. When you're a lot, okay, so I'm treading lightly on how to say this because it can sound egotistical or it can sound like, well, I think, no. It doesn't. It's a reality. So a lot of times what I was getting hired to do was to play the guitar on an album. They just needed a guitar player to play good guitar on an album. And I was that person. And they thought, okay, you have good creative decisions. They liked what I do. A lot of times nowadays they're hiring me because I'm Cory Wong to play on their album. And I say that kind of like cringing at myself, but that's just the reality of like, oh, can you like do the Cory Wong thing on our song? In that case, they're not just looking for like a good guitar player, because a lot of you on this exact call could probably do a lot of the sessions that I get called for in certain cases, but the ones where it's just like play sessions. But if somebody wants me to be Cory Wong on their song, that requires a different set of attention. That requires a different amount of whatever. So in that sort of thing, now I'm less of just like, oh yeah, whatever. And in that case, like my managers need to handle that sort of thing and kind of figure out like, oh, is this a label? Is it an independent artist? That sort of thing.
I like to do.
Oh, we got somebody joining us. I don't know who that is, but it sounds fun. I can't tell who that is, but it sounds like, I'm guessing a 3-year-old. Okay, so as far as for those of you who are wondering for you, negotiating your pay, ask what you think, what you want them, what they have in mind, and oftentimes it's more. And if it is less, and if it is more than what you had in mind, just say, okay, awesome, I'm down for the gig. But if they say, oh, I thought it was X amount and you thought it was going to be more, or you expected more, you could say, okay, thanks for sharing that. Typically for these types of gigs, I get paid X amount. And you might be able to meet them in the middle. You know, if they say, oh, here's this gig, it pays $150. And you say, well, typically I normally would get $400 for this sort of gig or $250 for this sort of gig. They might say, okay, I'll pay you $250. Or they might say, well, can you meet me in the middle? You know, so I think it's okay to just talk about that. I think it's good to know the going rates of session players and gigs in your town for comparable things. Like a touring band is different than a wedding band. A lot of times, actually, a lot of players make way more money on a single night in a wedding band than they do on the road. That's just the reality of it. So if you're comparing apples to apples, great. And you have to compare your city to your city. You know, the pay scale in Minneapolis is different than it is in New York. So, I don't know. Just, it's okay. That's also why a great community around you is good, because then you can know kind of what the going rates are for things. And you have to also understand different people have different levels of experience. So sometimes players get paid more, sometimes they get paid less. I don't know. You know, it's that sort of thing. Where did I get my sweater? I bought it at a place in Copenhagen. I don't remember what it was called. I saw it in the window and I said, that's a dope sweater. And I bought 2 of them because I knew I'd spill sauce on one of them, which I did. Spaghetti sauce. Process of recording and creating riffs and grooves with Heinrich during the Dirty Loops recording session. So this is a fun recording session. The Dirty Loops album was great because we did that all remotely. And if for those of you that are unfamiliar with remote recording, it can be a very creatively stifling process, but it can also be really wonderful to do because you can have time to really sit with your thoughts on what you want to play. You can really craft your parts in a way where, like, if you're on studio time, that's expensive studio time, and there's a bunch of other musicians that are being paid for their time as well, you don't always get as much time to really craft out your parts, like to really spend time honing them in. But in the remote thing, for me, I'm able to, okay, I want to do this line. I want to go, and then I'm going to harmonize it. Or whatever. You know, I'm going to do 3 harmonies. Where on a session, the producer would be like, no, we're just moving on to the next song. Like, I'm not going to give you 6 guitar tracks to make your guitar part. Where for me, I'm like, yeah, but that's like kind of part of my thing a lot of times. So for me, I can do that a lot. In the Dirty Loop session, I was able to really craft my parts. I made really great demos for most of the songs, sent them to the Dirty Loops guys. They would add stuff on them, suggest changes, make changes of things, send them back to me. We'd go back and forth. And then when we really settled on forms and everything, I just said, okay, you guys record everything in your studio where you're at, all the rhythm section stuff, knowing pretty much what I'm going to do in a lot of cases, and then send it back to me, and I'll do all of my stuff with the horn players at my studio. And that's kind of how we did that. And then I was able to really craft it a little bit more. And a lot of my parts, I wrote to Heinrich's parts, or he just said, "Oh, this is what this is what you played on the demo. Play this exact same thing because I'm going to play a bass line that goes along with that." You know, so it was kind of cool getting the back and forth. Which exercises on my course can help you the most with sloppy playing at high speeds? There's 3 elements in that. There's the right hand, there's the left hand, and then there's the coordination between the 2. And then the other side of things is there's the mental awareness of timing, and then there's the execution of timing. So as far as the coordination thing goes, the workshops and the right hand exercises are going to be good. And as far as the some of the other stuff, there is a lesson called timing and mental awareness. That one will really help you as well. Will I make a Facebook group or a web board for people who are enrolled in the course? Well, I'm glad I chose not to do Facebook, but ta-da, we made a Discord at the request of last week's Q&A. Last week, somebody asked about a community group. So we made a Discord group. I am new to Discord. Michael, can you unmute yourself? And why don't you explain what's happening? Michael and I are going to run that. I would love to be able to have a community group for all of you that are in the course to be there. You can ask each other questions. I'll pop in there once in a while if there's something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it will. Michael, go ahead. You can.
It's guitar course focused. There's not much else than that, but there's general chat. And then the whole, like, every single lesson is covered. So if you want to talk and ask questions about each one of the lessons, there's channels to do that. And then there's also a place for server suggestions. So yeah, it's pretty basic, but you know, we can grow it as a community. And then we're going to email out, I believe, that link. So yeah.
Yeah, and actually, why don't you just throw it in the chat now? Sure. I mean, for those, we will end up emailing that out. But for those of you that just want to populate the group now, that server, go ahead, get in there. It's new to me also, so hey, let's do it.
Help
Brick
us.
and A. But yeah, I'm excited about it. It'll be fun to have a group, and it's closed off. It's an invite only thing. It's like if you're in the course, you have access to it. So um, hopefully it's not just a bunch of yeah. So it's stuff that's specifically to this course. It won't just be random. Hey, what's this course all about? You know,
Wow.
the
It's
you know
that was quick. That was quick.
what?
Everybody's popping in.
All right,
That was
great.
quick.
I like that. Okay, some other questions. When I write songs, do I think about the structure, chords, melody before, or do I just put a simple idea in my DAW and go from there? This is one. If you watch my On the One YouTube series, I talk a lot about the songs and the production process, but what you'll notice is my writing process is totally different for all of them. But the most common one is I'll get an idea of something and I'll make a voice memo, and then I'll revisit that voice memo when I'm at my computer. Today, I was just locked in my zone here, working on a tune that was just kind of based off of a little riff. So I recorded the riff in, and then actually, first what I do in that, I kind of hear, okay, what kind of groove would go along with this? So that way, when I record it in, just a very simple, just to kind of get my brain and my feel of that tempo right. And then I'll start to lock in the riff. Sometimes I'll add some chords, some low end. I'll record my bass parts or whatever, and then write a melody on top of it. Honestly, that's usually I normally build the rhythm section first and then build the melodies on top. But a lot of times it'll just be starting from a melody. My song Bluebird, I just had that that little riff, that melody in my head. It's like, oh, this is like a melody, but it's also just kind of like a rhythm guitar part. But it's all kind of in one. So that just kind of came to my mind, and I heard it, and I made a voice memo and went with it. So it totally depends. Most of what I do is groove oriented, and then I add melody on top. But occasionally, I'll start with a melody. How do I collaborate with players who provide great ideas and energy, but don't have as much expertise or technical skill? Well, that just depends on what position they have or what role they're playing in the context of what we're doing. If somebody's role is one where they don't need to be really technically proficient, that's fine. A lot of times musicians are looked down upon because they don't have a bunch of technical facility, but they have really creative ideas and really, really compelling artistic ideas. And those can often get overlooked, which in many cases is unfair. So if you take a look at a Salvador Dali painting that has so much artistic value and so much vision, and there's so much technical precision, the shading, the colors, the precision of everything about it could be just so incredible. And then you look at a Mark Rothko painting and you see all this such a heavy artistic concept. It's like, I don't know, technically, like, yeah, there's technique involved in how that works, but it's not as technical as a Dali painting. Is one any more artistic or more creative than the other? I can't answer that question. I value them both. And the same thing in music is, just because somebody can't shred through minor 7 flat 5 arpeggios doesn't mean that like they don't have a good idea to go to the flat 6 major chord on the bridge. It's like, I don't know what chord this is, but it sounds cool. Like, oh yeah, that does sound really cool. Who cares if you know what it is? In the end, it's like, what does the listener hear? What does it sound like on the other end of Spotify? Like that to me is kind of how, or wherever, on somebody's car, how are they going to listen to it? That to me is what matters. So if they need to be technically proficient, get on them and tell them to be technically proficient. If they don't need to be as technically proficient and you've got that covered, well, great. Take in some creative ideas. Regarding my high output various projects, how do I structure my work days and the time I'm able to commit with each work day? I don't have a very specific set number of hours, but it totally varies, and it also depends on the season and where I'm at in an album cycle, where I'm at as far as like preparing for tour, coming off of tour, if I'm on tour. If I'm in album mode, if I'm in my record cycle, I'm like in the studio all day. And by all day, no, I don't mean all day. Like I wake up, I help my kids get ready in the morning, they get on the bus, and then I go to work, and then I'm working until, sometimes it's straight up 9 to 5. Sometimes it's 9 a.m. to midnight. Sometimes I'm working for a couple hours in the morning. Then I go play a couple rounds of disc golf. And then I'm hanging with my family. And then like I put my kids to bed at 8:30 or whatever. And I'm like, all right, time to go. And I get back in my office and I'm just working until 4 a.m. or something. It's, so it's not always a very structured thing. But again, I am a to-do list task worker. I'm not I need to sit down for this many hours worker. I'm okay, this is what needs to get done. Let me get through this list of things. So maybe not the best answer, but I think it's, and also, sometimes when I'm coming out of an album cycle, I need more personal time. I need to just get out, exercise, do other things that aren't music so I can just start thinking in other things. It'll get my brain thinking about different types of things. So then when I do sit down, I have different perspective or whatever. Any recommendations for DAWs or input software? People just getting into recording and not wanting to break the bank? Logic. Dude, I'm telling you, Logic is insane. I use Pro Tools and Logic, and I have Ableton, but I don't really use it. Pro Tools is cool, but it doesn't come with as many great sounds. And honestly, I think all the Logic stock stuff, like the Logic plugins, the Logic instruments, I could honestly probably be kind of happy with those just on any project. If it was just, you got to use all stock Logic stuff, okay, cool. Yeah, whatever. Like it'll take me a little more time because I'm not used to the EQ the way that I'm used to the Fab Filter one, but it's great. Like the Logic is incredible. That's what I would use. In terms of guitar recording, do I always have to double track? Any tips for home recording? Double track as in record two parts at once. Sometimes I'll double my guitar parts, but sometimes I just record. It just depends on the song. I usually just plug directly into my Apollo. You can't see it because I can't move the camera. It's just a UAD Apollo. I just plug right into the front of that, and I use my Archetype Cory Wong Neural DSP plugin for literally everything that I do. And 90% of it is just the default patch. And then sometimes I'll use pedals or whatever going into it, or I'll use like if I'm using overdrive, I just use the pedals that are in the plugin. So as far as tips for home recording, just get a good set of monitors to listen, a good set of headphones, and a decent interface. I like the Universal Audio stuff. It is pretty expensive, but to me it's worth it because it sounds amazing. Is the tone of my signature Strat brighter than most Strats? My plugin presets are quite dark, but my tone is very present. I don't think my pickups are that bright. I think most people just like a brighter tone than I do. Just crank all your stuff to 10. Like to me, I don't know. When I check my pickups, the brightness, these are pretty standard as far as the EQ goes. There's obviously different things, but my presets are maybe a little bit darker because most people end up, to me, when they plug into stuff, everything sounds so harsh and brittle. So my default, I wanted it to be tamed a little bit because it ends up sitting better in mixes and that sort of thing. How much time preparation do I put in for online collaborations? Like the thing with Dirty Loops, that one, we had a couple of emails saying, hey, do you guys want to do this? Should we do this? Yes. And then that process was honing in the songs that we're going to do. We sent demos back and forth. Then it was, and that was probably a few weeks of that. And then a few weeks of sending files back and forth, actually doing the recordings. And then it was maybe 2 weeks of mixes back and forth. The guy that normally mixes my stuff with me, we did ours. Well, we did half the songs, and then the guy that normally does Dirty Loop stuff did half the songs, so we just went back and forth. But a lot of my collaborations, it can take anywhere from, sometimes somebody will send me a song, and it's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do on this right now. Boom, I record the song, and I send it back to them an hour and a half later. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. Any tips for unlearning bad habits formed over 30 plus years of playing? Tell you what, I'm in the middle of that right now. So yes, I have tips from personal experience. Like I said, I've been working on like my single note speed shred technique and different like ways to hold the pick to do it. What I realized that I was doing, so I've been doing some stuff with Troy Grady from Cracking the Code, and what I noticed is he talks about this thing called string hopping, where I pick down and then when I pick, it picks down and then back up. So I'm kind of like pecking at the notes a lot of times. And although sometimes that actually, to me, helps the tone for what I do, certain things I like that tone, but in certain like actual efficiency of motion things, like if I need to be going, if I need to play just like it doesn't work. So I've had to kind of unlearn some of my single note right hand technique slowly. And to answer your question, the process, any tips for that is just go really, really slow and then go really, really fast. If it's a technique thing, try to just like find where your max is and just get that motion happening. Like for me, if I'm thinking, all right, I just want to blast out. If I want to, or like, I'm just going to blast it out and not really think about it. Whatever. If I want to do that sort of thing, cool. But then do that exact motion, because that's my most efficient motion. Now let me take that and go really slow. And then eventually go up, and I'm taking this. This would be over the course of 20 minutes, where I'll sit it's painstakingly slower. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could play so much better than this. I sound awful. I sound terrible, and I'm playing slow. Like, what's wrong? Like, every fiber in my body is like, no, just do what we know how to do because you sound great. It's like, no. I'm trying to correct something. So I play it really fast to just get that feeling of what it's like fast, and then I slow down to really hone in the control of it. And that's one thing that a lot of people, I have the mental awareness of all that, and I have the execution on that sort of thing. But if I'm trying to go for a new technique or a different style of holding my pick for a certain type of line, what's really important is that I just take that time. And really just go through it. And it'll be 20 minutes. But, sometimes what I'll do is I don't know. I just have to, I don't know. I think of it as, I don't think of it as unlearning. I think of it as like, there's almost something meditative about it. I just really, it's a focus exercise. And just like how in meditation, you think about every breath in, every breath out. For me, I'm thinking every downstroke count, every upstroke counts. And it's like, even these really slow ones, I want them all to be perfect. And then I'll just rifle through some really fast ones just to see what it feels like to play fast again. And then, like in the double beat, triple beat, and right hand, some of the right hand lessons in the course, there's things where I go half time and then I go double time for speed bursts. I'll do that sort of thing when I'm learning a new technique or unlearning something. I'll get that new technique slow, go slow, double time, double half time, that sort of thing. So I can get the control, and then I can get the feeling of that speed. How do I suggest players breaking out of the habit of minor pentatonic shapes? Oh, isn't this just the biggest question of life for most guitar players? Like, the pentatonic box. I feel like I'm trapped in the box, man. You even call it a box. You caged me in because with a caged system, the box of the pentatonic shape. It's like, we give these names to things that feel like oppressive on us as players after we've played for 10 years. But I think the reality is it's more about having an understanding, again, of how the musical value of these things is compared to what the shapes of them are. The more that you think of them as shapes, the more that they're just going to live in your mind as such. So as soon as you break away from saying, oh, this is shape 1 of G minor pentatonic, and if you stop thinking of it as just that, and you just start thinking, here's an anchor point of this scale that gives me these tools for this song that connects to this one. So for me, what I will normally do, I guess, I'm going to be less philosophical about this because I could go on for hours if I do that. As far as actual getting nuts and bolts, getting out of that box feeling, is start to practice 2 ways. One, where you play when you get to one note on one side of it, just slide up to the next shape. And what'll happen is the 2 shapes will start to blend together naturally. Right? And then the next thing would be just practice playing less up and down. So much of what we do as guitar players is vertical, learning these shapes, rightfully so, because the guitar is set up this way and it actually makes it quite easy to learn these shapes. What I would suggest doing, I talked about this in the last Q&A, is just pick a string set 1 and 2, okay? G minor pentatonic. Practice just those 2 strings. G minor pentatonic, up and down the fretboard. Then go strings 2 and 3. Play, little ideas, musical phrases. Just practice, what that looks like. Because now all of a sudden you're thinking less of, here's this vertical shape here, here's this one, here's this one, here's this one. Now you're thinking up and down the fretboard. Because the way that a vocalist thinks about a melody is not do, 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 do. It's not like this sort of thing where they're... Which what we think on the guitar, because it's just like right there in our fingers. So it actually is going to be more... even if it's just on 1 string, then do it on 3 strings. So you're actually just removing those shapes in general, as far as a visual vertical, you're now looking horizontal on the fretboard. Those are going to be your biggest things. I have a Cory and the Wong Notes skip where I rag on tabs. But are tabs something you should graduate from and then avoid using at all costs? Don't have any shame in using tabs. Tabs are wonderful. Tabs are great. It's just fun to poke at, because a lot of times what happens is we just like, hey, you have the tabs for that song? It's like, you mean the one that goes like this? Like, learn it, try to figure it out by ear. That's why tabs get a bad rap, okay? Because a lot of times we as guitar players will give ourselves an out from actually having to spend the time learning something by ear. It's just like, what is the tabs for this? Rather than like, wait, is that chord voicing? What is that? Is it that, or is it, trying to find weird chord voicing to really try to hear those harmonies. It's like, let me look online. What's that chord voicing? Like, oh, it's that, oh, okay, no, I see it. Rather than trying to really hear it. So tabs are wonderful. Don't be ashamed of using tabs. Tabs are fine, but don't use them as a crutch, and don't let it be the only way that you learn music. Really try to train your ears to hear chord voicings, to hear melodic structures, to hear what scales people are using, what chords people are playing, and kind of how they're approaching things, and it will really help you. But hey, if you're in a bind and you need some help, don't worry. The tabs, yeah, they're there. But I think don't use them just as a, you can use them as a walker. Don't use it to walk. I don't know. Am I recording these sessions and adding them to a section in the course at some stage? Yes, I believe we are doing that right now. This is being recorded, and we're hoping to have it posted up ASAP. Little technical difficulties in the last one. Gonna see if we can make it work, but yes. How do I keep my body in shape when working at home? Well, like I said, I now see a personal trainer 2 times a week, and I go for a lot of bike rides, and I play a lot of disc golf. Gets me out in nature, gets me out in the world, gets me thinking, and it's physical exercise. But I just started seeing a trainer like a month and a half ago. So when I was working at home and still working at home, I do a lot of fitness videos. I don't know. I was doing Orange Theory online. Then I was doing a bunch of Beachbody on demand. I had an account there for a while. Got sick of those videos, and that's why I'm going to a trainer now. I don't know. Oh, Avi says, sorry, the kids unmuted me. Catching back up for that one. No worries. If I get tagged in someone's social media post or video, do I feel happily idolized, or does it annoy me? And if it annoys me, would you like me to stop tagging you? No, I think it's fun. I think it's great. Like, here's the reality. I am not like at the level of like wow, why is the first person I thought of like Neil Diamond? Why is Neil Diamond the first person I thought of? I'm not like Reese Witherspoon, where there's, I don't have millions of followers. It's that there's not millions of people posting videos of them playing guitar with me. There's thousands, sure, but like they're fun to see, and even some of those, like the ones that I end up seeing are normally the ones that have more views or whatever. So it's like, oh, this is cool. This person's good. Like, awesome. It doesn't annoy me at all. I think it's awesome. I think it's flattering, and I think it's super cool. It's awesome. I'm very appreciative. It's crazy to me that that people post that stuff. It's so cool. I love it. Can you tell us the composition process of Brooklyn Bop, the second song of my last YouTube gig? Thanks. Yeah, actually, let me find something, because I'll talk you through this. So I texted my friend Jordan Rose. So we played this gig in Brooklyn, and on my way to the gig in the hotel room, I was like, oh, I got an idea for a tune. Oh, come on. Oh, dang it. Hold on. I have to, it's worth it. I promise. Jordan Rose. I was in my hotel room. I was like, I got this chord progression idea. And a groove. So this is me singing the groove. Oh, we didn't end up going there, did we? Anyways, so I made this little voice memo, and I sent it to Jordan. I was like, hey, let's jam this at soundcheck. I got it. I think this could be cool. It could be cool. And we start playing it. I'm just, playing it at soundcheck, and then, everybody's kind of joining in, rhythm section's joining in, and the saxes are kind of there, kind of messing around, playing some melodies. I'm like, oh, yeah, do that. Da 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 da. I was like, ooh, wait, hold on. The second time around, like have that kind of develop more, make it feel like cool, and then like add a different phrasing to it. So they were just kind of playing, and then I just suggested, okay, do this. And then they added that. It's like, oh yeah, cool. Then we just kept looping that section. It's like, okay, B section. I think I said, oh, let's go halftime. And then, actually, this is what I originally thought for the B section. So end it the same. And just do that. Then Eric Finland, the keyboard player, was like, oh, well, let's just change. What if we change the chords on the second half, double it, and then actually just make it a whole section? Okay, yeah, cool. And then, so we worked out some changes on that, and then same sort of process with the melody. Eddie and Sam kind of came up with the melody on that. Kato, bass player, wasn't at soundcheck. Nega Santos, the percussion player, she wasn't at soundcheck. And Taz wasn't at soundcheck. So they're not cut in on the writing. They didn't write the tune. Everybody else is there. So everybody else, like, we all contributed to it. And then I made a little voice memo of it at the sound check. Let me actually see if I can find, what was that, August? Yeah, so here's us at sound check. And then I think yeah, so basically, after sound check, I just texted that voice memo to Louis Cato, who has perfect pitch, and he's just like, oh, yeah, I know what to do. I mean, really, the song is just two sections. It's just A section, B section, and, okay, solos are over the A section, cue the B section, and then I'll just call the form out from there. So that one was very organic because I had that groove in my mind. I had that, and I was kind of producering as I was going while we were writing that tune. Like, oh, no, change this. So everybody's kind of throwing in ideas, and then I'm just kind of get to be the one to make the final decision on everything. So that was fun. It's a cool one. Any tips to get the best guitar/band home studio recording on a budget? So much can be done. It's hard to know where to get started. If I were trying to get the most, like if I had like $1,000 to put on everything, assuming that I had a computer, what I would probably do is buy either a Focusrite or a Presonus interface that has 8 channels. Because the Apollo stuff is too expensive with that many channels. I would, of course, say Apollo because I love what they do, or Universal Audio. Focusrite, I think you can get a cheap Well, I don't know exactly how much they are now. I haven't bought one in a long time. Owned this forever. And then I would just get a couple SM57s. I'd get a couple condenser mics. And honestly, I record my guitar and bass DI. So, you don't have to buy mics there. But if you want to record your amps, great. And, just get great players in good sounding room and learn how to place the mics kind of good. And you can actually get really great stuff. But I think an 8-channel interface, a handful of mics, like a couple SM57s, a couple, I like the EV-RE20 is a good all-around microphone, and a couple condenser microphones, you'd be in biz. Modeling pedals or amps on stage. I've used the Quad Cortex before, the Neural DSP thing. For a while on tour, I was touring with a Kemper. Oh my gosh, Pat Metheny is on tour right now with a Kemper. Did you know that? Metheny is on tour with a Kemper. 100% confirmed. Wow. Insane. Kempers, they make some great stuff, but I have also used my plugin, the Archetype Cory Wong, on stuff. How did I used to tape the switch on the 4th position? I would literally just put a piece of gap tape here and just leave it so it could only be 4th or 5th. Advice for hardworking, experienced guitarists with severe social anxiety on getting yourself exposed. I personally don't have that sort of thing, but I know a lot of people who do, and I would say it's not wrong to have those feelings, first off. If you're anxious about performing, if you're anxious about putting yourself out there, that's totally normal, and it's totally okay to have those feelings of maybe some self-doubt, or oh, I'm nervous of how people are going to perceive what I'm doing. But I think the deeper, I'm going to try to say this as short as I can without going on. The deeper meaning of it is try to find what it is you're trying to accomplish out of performing live, what it is that you use as your marker for identity. How do you identify yourself? Do you identify yourself as a guitar player? If so, is that what you're worried about being torn down, or is that what you're nervous about losing? Is your entire identity wrapped in I am a guitar player? And if you mess up, people are going to say, oh, that person is a bad guitar player. Or you might think, oh, I messed up on the guitar. That actually is a reflection of who I am as a person. Those are two completely different things. So sometimes if we wrap our identity and our value in the guitar, the way that we perform on that, there's so much at stake if we make a mistake. So my suggestion would be, if that's you, because it is a lot of people, that's kind of a thing, find another place to find your identity, who you are. Maybe it's something that you're trying to do in the world. Maybe it's something that you really believe in. But if you can connect yourself to an identity that's something more than something completely fallible, like our skills on the guitar, or the fact that I'm going to mess up on the guitar, or I'm a basketball player. Because you know what? Your knees are going to get pretty tired by the time you get, I don't know, in your 40s, maybe earlier. So somebody who identifies as a basketball player, that's going to be pretty tough when they can't play basketball the way that they want to anymore, the way that their body physically could. Same thing conceptually with the guitar. There's just certain things you're going to be able to do some days, certain things you're not. You're going to have bad gigs. I remember in college, oh my gosh, my friends and I, oh, I'm a jazz musician. I'm a jazz musician. And then we'd go sit in on these gigs, and we'd sit in on these jams, and we'd oh man, they called this tune that I don't know. I got lost in the form. A half a chorus in, I don't know where I'm at in the form. And now I'm just emptying out my chamber, just hoping that I'm going to land on the top of the form. And it's I called myself a jazz musician, and I lost the form halfway through the first chorus, and then all of a sudden, like, my self-worth was just, I was just like so down on myself. And so many of my friends did the same thing because we placed so much value, so much self-value, and so much identity in that thing. So it's like, all right, let me find something else. So I would say if you have anxiety, try to find something else that you can shine a light to, and find an identity in that's not just the way that you perform something or play something. Can I play that crazy time signature riff I played at Riff Wars, the Chipotle one? That's the one that Pitar says is in 25/8, and I keep telling people, audiences, it's in 25/8, but nobody can ever actually count it to 25/8. I actually think it's 45/16, if I'm being honest. If I were, which is the most absurd time signature. But it's like it's bop 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 bop. One. One. It's actually this riff from this dude Slobodan, this like clarinet player from Serbia. But I think the real riff is in 25/8 and we play it in 45/16. Our bad. You want to know why it's our bad? Because that's the way that Pitar taught it to us. So I'm blaming it on him. He's the one from Serbia. He's like, bro, this is traditional Serbian 25/8. I promise you. I'm like, oh yeah? Well, then how come his has an extra 16th? And how come when I play this riff into Logic on the MIDI, it doesn't line up? How come when I put it in Finale, it doesn't line up? And Michael Nelson, the horn arranger, who's so meticulous about everything, he's like, dude, I can't get this to add up. Can anybody get this to add up? It's like Goodwill Hunting, like we're waiting for somebody to go on the board after school and like finally solve the equation that Pitar has given us. Really, it's a bad equation. So that's that riff. I love Pitar, but man, how'd he screw that one up? And he's calling home turf on it too. It's like this is the time signature of Serbia. I'm like, all right, cool. It's a dope tune though. Thoughts on the new Tone Master Super Reverb? I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I love any good amp with like nice clean headroom. These days, do I still record stuff at home? Yes, all the time. This is a studio down the road from my house, but I still also have a little setup at my house. But this still is kind of like a home studio setup. It's like a large. This would be this was a living room. This is an addition on a house, on my friend's house. There's house, and then there's this addition, and I occupy this addition. I rent it as my studio space. But I do have a little office at my house too. I love recording at home. It's great. Where do I hold my hand when strumming over the pickup? On bass, just finger placement can have a huge effect on tone. How does that impact the way? Okay, so where I hold my pick, like where I pick, yeah, so single note wise, it makes much more of a difference. Gets more nasally in there, towards the bridge, of course, right? As far as when I'm playing my usual thing, this is just kind of uncomfortable because my sweep is gonna hit. I have a wide sweep. I have a wide stroke when I play, so it's just gonna hit there. So I normally am kind of in between the neck and middle pickup. But not because, I like it sounding. I like the way it sounds there, but also just the way that my technique is, it just works best. Brent Mason, dope. writer's block. Don't compare the thing about writer's block. Anytime I feel writer's block, it's because I'm like, oh, this isn't as good as other stuff that I've done, or oh, this isn't as good as blah 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 blah. It's all about comparison. So as soon as I feel any sense of writer's block, it's just, okay, remove all sense of comparing this to anything I've done before, anything anybody else has done before. Let me just get through this thing now. And it's not like when I'm sitting down to write something, it's not like this has to be done now. Like, sure, I'll finish it now, and then I'll come back and revisit it in a month or like in tomorrow. Like, I'll literally come back to this session that I finished today. I'll open it tomorrow and I'll think, oh, this could be better. This could be better. This could be better. And then I'll just change it and it's fine. So I think not holding too much weight to that one time when I'm sitting down to write. It's like, you come back and change it later. Ever play around with Indian style vocal rhythm methods as a tool? No, I don't know a lot of, the takatimi. Nah, not a lot. Not really. Chromatics. The way that I weave chromatics into my playing is similar to some of the way, if you haven't gone through workshops 2 and 3 yet, where I do chromatic approach notes to target notes. So if I'm thinking about target notes to, like, if you want to add chromaticism to your playing, let's say I'm playing C major. The way that I often, I mean, that's not a very musical thing, but I was just trying to get chromatics in there. But the way that I normally like to bring chromatics in is I think about target notes, and it's just chromatic approach to those notes. A lot of times people think way too much about, like, oh, I can't play an A flat over a C chord. Where it's like, well, yeah, you can if the A flat is bringing you to G. You know, I just played 2 notes that aren't in the scale, but really it's just all about the harmonic tension, the tension and release. So what I do a lot of times is I think about target notes. So in the workshops, I talk about the arpeggio. Right? Those are just 1 3 5 1 3 5 1. I'll think about approach notes to that note. So I'll go for the sake of this, 2 notes from above the C, whole step above, a half step below. So my target is C. I'm going to start a whole step above, a half step below, and then I'm going to land on the target note. And then for the E, same thing. Right? So I'm just thinking of these target notes. But I'm doing the same chromatic approach thing. Target, 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 target. You know, and I can add some of that sort of stuff into scale runs, but that's kind of a simplified version of explaining an easy way to bring some chromaticism into your playing. The riff on My First Car live. Having difficulties figuring it out. The riff on My First Car. Is that who's Boele? Can you unmute yourself, Boele? Is that the riff you're talking about? It's that. So really, it's kind of the same thing. I'm just going. Oh, shoot. I'm actually kind of. Yeah. So I'm just going. It's just all the pentatonic dyads. I'm just thinking pentatonic dyads. So just like in the workshops where I talk. So in this case, I'm going to go E major pentatonic. Right? Now, if you think about the pentatonic shapes as having a front half and a back half, it's like the first note and the first note of every string and then the second note of every string. I'll play just adjacent notes. Right? All downstrokes. Again, like I was talking about earlier, just adds a little more attack to it. And then it just changes keys, so you can just do it in whatever key. Well, not whatever key, just whatever key is appropriate at the time. But that sort of principle applies. Let's say I'm playing, I mean, that little thing, it's like kind of a riff that I use a lot. Let's just say I'm in the key of C major. The most generic C major thing I can play, right? So I'm going to go to my C major pentatonic shape. So... it's very, very Cory Wong, right? But it's just because I have that, like that part of that sound is just so much of what I do. And a lot of it has to do with the way I'm harmonizing it and the way that I'm doing all the downstrokes on it. And yeah, that's one of those sort of things. Pentatonic dyads, that's it. Very easy once you get it down. Recording process question, two extremes. One being treating everything like your magnum opus, really contemplating, considering back and changing the entire feel of things. Where do I fall between just kind of like going to work and creating my magnum opus? On the day-to-day basis, I show up to work. When I think big picture, I try to think about the magnum opus. When I try to look at everything. And then if I need to adjust from the day-to-day, like I said, I'll work on something, and then it's like I'll come back to it over and over again. So that's kind of how that's how I get into it. Dan's coming in with the links. I see that. Nice. Played a gig where the stage was close to the crowd, but somebody's mobile phone was heavily interfering with your amp. Yeah. I actually... they must have been pretty freaking close if their phone was messing with your amp. Because, like, my phone here is fine, but, like, right there I can hear it. That seems a little odd. It's probably bad power in the venue, to be honest. Like, if the power's clean, normally that helps with that sort of thing. But it's tough. It's 2021, you kind of can't ask people to not have their phones. I don't know. I would just deal with it if I were you. Or like, like that's not the answer you want to hear, but it's like, I don't know. When I go to a gig, like I'm going to have my phone with me, Actually, another Paisley Park story. Don't tell them. But back when Prince was hosting these late night things, he would always tell us like, "Hey, no phones." It's like, all right, You better believe I put my freaking phone down in my sock. I walked into that joint with my phone in my sock. He didn't know. But the point was, don't have your phone out when it's inappropriate. Okay. Was I not obeying the rules? Sure. But I wasn't doing anything disrespectful. It's not like, check it out. I'm here at Paisley Park doing the, it's like you got to just have respect. Now, is somebody's phone messing with your amp? Ugh, that's a bummer. But I would probably just deal with it. It's like, the person's not going to just put their phone away. Okay. Jamming to Follow the Light. What am I playing on the chorus? Follow the light. Da, da, da. I'm just I'm just playing like doing that. But I retuned my guitar. And then I just did like an octaves thing, just on the tonic. That's all I did on that one. Saw me at a show in Cincinnati and said to your friend that everything in the band was equally as good as equal. Okay, saw everybody in the band was equally as good as me as a musician, but it all came together as a Cory Wong experience. As a band leader, how do you choose the right cast of characters to serve the music while letting them have their moments in the spotlight? I think part of that is finding people. Again, it's not always about is it the best musician. It's just is it the right musician for the gig. I have had plenty of musicians play with me that are not like, oh my gosh, they're the most insanely technical player, but they just play the right things at the right time. And that's what's most important. As far as my band right now, they play the right things at the right time, and they're just insanely technically proficient, which is incredible and super fun. But part of like what makes it me as a band leader, the experience of the show, so much of it is my role as a front man, as a producer, writer, entertainer in the show, and how I write the songs around my guitar playing, and how I write the songs push away from my guitar playing at certain moments. I think that's kind of part of the key. But as far as like being a band leader, you've got to just know when to delegate certain things, when to really take control of certain things, and when to be an anchor without being at the forefront all the time. So for me, a lot of times my guitar parts aren't at the forefront, but I am the anchor of the moment, and I am the anchor of the entire thing that's happening, because like, okay, this person's doing this, but where are we going next? It's always like, okay, Cory's going to let us know, or Cory's let us know that this person is going to take us to that next thing. So there's a lot of different ways of approaching that. But the general thing is just find the right person for your gig. Can we take questions from folks who've had your emoji hands up? Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Should I go?
Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to get to you guys after I got through this list. So, but it looks like I'm coming to that part of the list. Come at me. What's your question?
So yeah, I was into the first 1 hour of the session, the first session. I got through pretty much most of it. What I'm confused about, or a little bit need a bit of clarification, is the time feel part. So when you say that, okay, at some point you should try to once try to play with the meter, sometimes try to pull the beat, sometimes push the beat. So this part, I don't know, it sounds a bit subjective to me, at least as of now. So I don't know if I'm quote unquote pushing it properly, or I'm just flat out playing out of time, so how do I know whether I got it right, or whether I'm just flat out playing the wrong time?
That is a really great question. And that is the thing. It's like, am I playing behind, or am I just dragging? And exactly. I think, yes, that is a great question, and it is very subjective. But I think a lot of it is awareness of how something feels. So a lot of times something will feel more relaxed if it's just a little bit behind. Sometimes something will feel like it has a little more angst if it's a little more in front, right? So, and there's a certain feel to things that are very metronomic. I'm a very metronomic player. Sometimes I'll push, sometimes I'll pull back, but in general, I'm like, my default is down the middle. And the best way to test it is if you have like Logic or Pro Tools or something, and you can put on a drum machine or like put on a click, record yourself, and see where you are on the grid. If you want to make the subjective objective, that's what I would do, is just see, okay, am I playing a little bit ahead? Am I playing a little behind? Am I right on the beat? And then it's like, okay, whatever. You might think that, but then it's just, okay, you did it. Now see how it feels. Try to see, do they give you a different emotion? Is there a different level of when you're pushing forward, or is it a different level of relaxed when you're just a little behind the beat? If you don't have a DAW or something like that, just put on a metronome on your computer and open up your voice memos and make a voice memo of yourself playing along to a drum set, or like a drum set metronome or a metronome itself. I use drumbit.app. I'm going to just copy and paste this. They don't pay me to say this. I just searched drum set metronome online one day, and this was the first thing that came up. And it's well. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
It's not that exciting, but I can program my own little drum beat and play along to it on my browser. So, I don't have to download anything. And so if I just need something quick, I can just do that. And I would say record yourself playing along and try to listen. Am I playing it? Is my attack before the kick drum, or is it after, or is it right on? And just try to have that awareness. That's the biggest thing, is just try to have that awareness. Now, playing in front of the beat, behind the beat, there's no reason to get cute with that other than how does it make you feel when you, how does the music feel when the time is pushing? How does the music feel when it's a little bit behind? That's the important thing about that lesson. But your awareness of it is what's going to kind of give you that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. All right, Mike Holtz, come at me.
You already answered my question about tabs.
Oh, okay.
Love you.
All right, I saw your hand up.
See you in Phoenix next month.
All right. Jim, cool looking studio there.
Yeah, I had a question for you, and then this isn't exactly about guitar though, but you kind of told this story about when you were demoing out Today I'm Gonna Get a Real Job, and you sung the original thing on it, and you wanted somebody else to sing over it.
Yeah.
And you kind of eventually came to the decision you wanted to do it. I'm kind of in a similar thing. I sing backups for my wife. She's the singer.
Yeah.
But I have little things where I'm playing, I'm singing, and everyone keeps telling me, like that sounds good enough as it is, but I don't like my voice. So my question is twofold. One, what was the actual thing that got you to say, you know what, I am going to be the one that sing on this? And two, how much do you actually practice your singing?
Whenever I get in the car. I don't practice my singing that often. Not nearly as much as I would if I were like, I'm going to be a singer. I don't practice singing very often. I mean, I sing along to songs and stuff, and I sing backgrounds on my own demos and stuff here and there. But as far as practicing, I don't know. I don't really practice much. But as far as getting over the hump to just say, like, screw it, I'm just going to be the singer on that, part of it was, I just hadn't put out any, you don't want to hear me sing the song starting line. My voice is not great for that sort of thing. And I thought if there's any sort of song that I am going to be a lead vocalist on, this one actually has something kind of unique to it. Like the character and tone of my voice when I sing Real Job actually really works just as nice as if a really great singer sang it. Now, would they sing in more tune and more control? Yeah, but I think my voice has a certain character to it when I sing that song that actually draws out something in the song that'd be different than if it was like Carrie Underwood singing it. It'd be like, oh my gosh, it's incredible singing, but it doesn't carry the same message, of the song. So that to me is why I just decided, screw it, I'm going to be the singer for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Jeremy?
Hi. Thanks for
How you
answering
doing?
so many questions.
Of course.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you have one of those gigs where, let's say, you have to learn 15 songs and you have a week to do it, and it's just, one gig at the end of it. What is your process for learning those songs, and how do you determine when you are prepared enough? versus, oh my God, I have to stay up till 4 a.m. again. And
I like this question better than last week's because somebody last week was like, I have to learn 70 songs by next week or something. And I was just like, I don't know how to answer this. But I did answer. And it's a similar thing. So for me, when I need to learn 15 songs feels manageable. Now, the thing is, like, can you use any assistance on stage? That's up to you and like what the vibe is. Like if Dua Lipa or Katy Perry or something called me tomorrow and was like, hey, we need you to come play a gig next week, it's not something I'm going to have charts on stage for. Like, it's got to be memorized, right? So what I'm going to do is, I don't know why they're the first. If Jamiroquai asked me to play next week and I had to learn 15 songs, first off, I already know most of the songs, but let's just pretend I didn't know any of the music. I would get the list, I would listen to them, and the first time down, I would just note the form of them all. Okay, here's song number 1. Intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus. Okay, cool, like kind of standard pop song form. Second song, verse, this one starts on the chorus and then it goes into the verse. But okay, interesting. So I would mark the forms before I even have a guitar in my hand. I would just familiarize myself with the forms, like kind of the big picture swoop of the songs. And then after I've kind of familiarized myself with the song a little bit and the song form, then I would listen through again and kind of mark down like the dynamic arc. Okay, we're not even talking learning anything yet. Like, it's just the form and the dynamic arc. Oh, this is where it gets really tight and quiet. Oh, this is where it's wide open and feels big. Because in that case, once you then start to learn the guitar parts, what's the guitar part's function? Oh, it's the guitar part is the rhythmically driving tight thing here. And in that case, it's like, okay, do I have to play exactly what was on the record, or do I need to play the rhythmically tight driving thing? Because in that case, it's like, I know what's there, and I know my version of that thing. And if it feels like it's a hook for the song, of course, I'm going to play that. If it feels super important to the song, I'm going to play that. But if it feels like I can kind of do my version of what the thing is that's being accomplished with the guitar part, I'll just kind of do that. Because that way it'll be a little more of inserting myself out of my own instincts. I'm relying more on my instincts than memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, note any of like the extreme, like this is something I have to know. If you're playing Sweet Child of Mine, you better know that intro. You got to have that freaking intro. You're not going to play anything else there. You're not going to interpret that. You got to play that intro. So, yeah. So anything that's hooks or signature lines, get that. But I would just kind of go through and get more specific as I'm listening down. And then how do I know when I'm ready? It's just like when I can play the song without having to listen to it. I would play along with it a few times, and then I would just listen to it in my head and play along. And then I know I've got it. Hope that helps.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Bruno?
Hi, Cory.
Hey.
You kind of answered my first question, but I thought of another one. Well, first, I'd like to know, will you come to Montreal someday?
I would love to come to Montreal. It is on my list.
Cool.
I would love to come there.
So I'm currently a semi-professional musician, and I would like to make it to pro. And I'd like to know if you have some advice on some steps I can take to eventually, make music my real job.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of different ways to make a living with music. When I started, I was teaching music lessons. I taught a lot of music lessons. I had 40 students a week at one point. And then it was playing some more gigs around town with my jam band and teaching some lessons. And then it was playing more gigs and teaching less lessons. And then it was, oh, I'm playing a lot of gigs and hardly any lessons. And then it was playing gigs and sessions. And then it just kind of grew into morphing into what it is now. So as far as doing music as a profession, there's a lot of different ways that you can make a living as a musician. So you can really just kind of set out your goals. If really your main goal is, I only want to make money with music, well, then there's actually a lot of options for you. You could teach lessons online. You can teach them to people around in the city you live in. You can do some session work. You can, that's obviously, that's easy. Oh, do session work. Like, how do you get session work? That's another thing. But, start to play in bands, play in the community that you're in, eventually get yourself there. But also, if you want to get to a point where you're playing the stuff that you really want to be doing, it's also totally okay to supplement that income with another job that's not music. Like if you want to really just play the music that you want to play and just do the stuff that you really are passionate about, then maybe that means for a long time having another source of income, and then eventually what you're really passionate about does start to bring in income. But I would just start to look around, define what your goals are, what you want to do, and then just try to see what avenues there are for you to be able to make a living doing it.
Great, thank you.
Yep, of course. Caleb, I'll take one last emoji question, and then we should wrap up.
My question for you would be, how's this? Better?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. My question for you would be P bass, jazz bass, or something else entirely?
For me, I'm gonna go in order. Jazz bass, Stingray, P bass. The Music Man definitely the Music Man, only because I'm so much like the slap tone that I grew up listening to is the J bass, but the Music Man basses are freaking insane, dude. They're so dope.
You have no idea how validating it is for you to say Stingray, man.
I didn't even know that was a Stingray in your hands. That's great. Yeah. I grew up loving the sound of the Music Man bass from Bernard Edwards, but also all of like the ska scene. Like Roger from Less Than Jake had a Music Man bass. So like a lot of the ska players that I loved were playing Music Man. So that's great. Was that your question? You wanted a bass question? I like that.
Yeah, I wanted a bass question.
All right. I'm into that. Well, everybody, thank you so much. Oh yeah, somebody has a tuba question. No, I'm gonna save that for my tuba course. This is strictly guitar course. My tuba course is coming out in 20 years when I perfect the tuba. But hey, everybody, thank you so much. This is really fun for me to connect with you all. It's really great to see you, some smiling faces, get to know some of the people that are taking the course. Like we mentioned, the Discord server, get in there, help each other out. I'll get in there every now and then and go through some stuff as well. But odds are, if you have a question about one of the lessons, somebody else might also have that question, or somebody else who's taking the course might have that answer also for you. And you might find other like-minded musicians in your area. So that could be a cool thing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll be doing another one of these next week, and I'm still trying to figure out. It'll probably be like morning time US, because this one and the previous one were afternoon, evening. So I'm just trying to hit different time zones for people around the world. So thank you all. Have a great week. Peace.